Hello and welcome to Politics here on France 24. 10 days to go before we will finally know who will come out on top in round one of the presidential elections and face off in the runoff, which is scheduled for May 6th. This is thus the final stretch of a grueling campaign. The candidates are exhausted, but they keep lining up rallies, interviews, you name it. The French are now making up their minds, and so we'll have to see who are the winners. With me on the set, Fabienne Keller, who's a senator and a member of the UMP Conservative Party, the ruling party. Hello and welcome. Also
Hello.
on the set, Jérôme Guetsch, who is a member of the National Bureau of the Socialist Party, and he's also at the head of the Essonne region near Paris. Hello and welcome.
Hello.
And last but not least, Mathieu Douaret with the Ipsos Polling Institute. I'm actually going to begin with you because we're going to see a poll taken by your institute this week about voting intentions. It shows that the incumbent Nicolas Sarkozy is slightly, very slightly, I should say, ahead of his rival François Hollande in the first round. But François Hollande is clearly in front in round two, 10 percentage point difference, similar trends by other polling institutes, maybe a narrower gap in the second round. But basically the story, and it's been the story for several weeks, so a very simple question, is it a done deal?
Probably not. It is never a done deal because, as you can see, in fact, two races within the race are very close and too close to call. The first one is who will end first at the poll on the first round, and the second question is still at the first round, who will be the third man, as we say, because obviously the toughest race for the moment is the race for the third place. With the National Front and the Left Front, which are even and with a very important outcome if one of the candidates that wins one of these two races is on the left. That would mean that the dynamics of the campaign have finally been more favorable to the left. If Nicolas Sarkozy and Marine Le Pen win their races, I would say, that would mean that in the end the trend was a little bit more favorable to the right than at the very beginning of the campaign, because we have to remember that at the beginning of the campaign the polls for the second round were not very different from what they are now, but the polls for the first round were very different, with a huge lead of François Hollande initially that has clearly narrowed month after month, weeks after weeks, and Jean-Luc Mélenchon, who almost did not exist in the first polls and now is at a level that the far left has never reached before since 1981.
Okay, Fabienne Keller, you were at a meeting of elected local officials with the president, the candidate slash president, and what we're hearing, and I assume that's what you will tell us, is that round one is one story, round two is a totally different story.
May I correct a little bit what
You may
was
correct
just said?
a lot if you want.
At the second round, the first figures were much higher for Mr. Hollande. They were over 60 at the polls beginning of January or in December. So Nicolas Sarkozy is progressing in the polls, but what is more important is progressing on the ground. When he sees and meets people, we feel really there is a new period since he's candidate, where he can get in relation directly with people as a candidate, not in his position as president, where a lot of critics were given to him. It's logic, because he has been in charge for 5 years, and you are only criticized when you implement reforms, and he did a lot for universities, for the organization of the justice, for the army, in a lot of areas. So the spirit is there. I think it's a wonderful democratic event, and the choice is about the man who is going to lead France, to lead the state.
But did he gain enough ground to be confident for round two? Because all the polls show that he's way behind in round two. He doesn't have enough reservoir of votes.
That's right. The discussion is about that. He's progressing a lot in the first round, you said it. But the second round is going to be an event in itself, because Mr. Mélenchon, Marine Le Pen, François Bayrou probably won't be there for the second round. As some polls show, the people who are voting for them are spread between the two major candidates. So they are going to, have a direct debate, the two together. So this is going to be very followed by, I think, millions of French. And I think really it's the very moment of the choice for the man who is going to lead France.
Jérôme Guedj, the polls indeed show François Hollande is now has less support in the first round, but they're still quite good in the second round. Do you think round one and round two are totally different story, or there is a clear link?
Honestly, probably as many French, I'm quite tired with the polls, More than 300 polls during this presidential election. We will have to think about that after the presidential election, because I'm not here to comment the polls, even if they are quite positive for François Hollande. For me, the most important thing is, indeed, we have a very important democratic debate. The presidential election will finish on the 6th of May. The important thing is to be confident on the French opinion and the French judgment, and they have very clear choice to make. We have the balance of Nicolas Sarkozy and a so-called program that he tried to present last week, 32 proposals, that most of them he had already in the past, even during the last election in 2007, proposed the same things. So we've got a clear choice between to go on with the same or to change for more equity and for more justice in the country. So let's be confident in the French judgment. Don't get excited with the first round and after it will be another story. That is the story that Mr. Sarkozy and his counselor like Patrick Buisson and some of them wants French people to think about that. I think the most important thing is to see proposals and the experience of what we've known during the last 5 years. And the proposal for change, the 60 proposals for change that François Hollande has made.
Let me just ask you about Jean-Luc Mélenchon. He's been the phenomenon of the campaign, the surprise, however you name it. He's now polling around 15%. You know him well.
Yes, I know him.
You know him well. And so many people are saying, what will his votes have, what impact will they have on François Hollande? Will they add themselves to François Hollande, or are they taking some votes away from him? Maybe people who are more towards the center and are afraid of people who are too much on the left.
The first impact, if we look at the polls, is that we have never known in the past election such a high level of left votes on the first round, with a total of between 43 and 45%, which will be something quite positive for the success in the 6th of May. So I'm not afraid when there is a dynamic on the left side. François Hollande said that he is confident in his program, and we will have to take into account the expectation. That doesn't mean the program, the expectation of all the voters on the first round. But nobody is hostage. That's a word that are used by the Conservative Party. Nobody is hostage of the vote of the French citizen on the first round. There is a dynamic on the left. We've got. Honestly, I'm not sure that we can say that there is a progression of Nicolas Sarkozy. He managed to eliminate all his competitors on the right. Christine Boutin, Hervé Morin, Dominique de Villepin. So it's logical and almost mathematical to have a small progression. But we will see on the 6th of May that the choice between change and no change will be probably at the core of the debate.
May I just say, I understand it doesn't give you a lot of pleasure, the fact that Nicolas Sarkozy is progressing, but it's a fact for the first round and for the second round. May I say that the issue of Mr. Mélenchon progressing so much is really important. This means that we have a lot of French people attracted by his position on the very left hand of the political spectrum. And this is the issue of how, if Mr. Hollande is elected, you would manage France. I meet a lot of future socialist ministers in the Senate. You know, the Senate has become socialist, and they are really
choice,
home
good
there,
thing.
and they are eating a lot and enjoying a lot in the Senate, and they are feeling like already in the position of ministers. But the issue is with which program? Because, of course, Mr. Hollande is his program, but Mr. Mélenchon is another one. Increase of about 20% of the public expenditures. He will increase the minimum wage. He has promised a lot, even more than Mr. Hollande. And the issue is this a responsible position? Can France afford this in terms of European constraints, for example, concerning the budget deficits? We have to make proposals that are realist, that are possible.
Before you get to answer, I want to ask the expert. How do the votes for Jean-Luc Mélenchon, François Bayrou, and Marine Le Pen, where do they go in the second round?
Yeah, the transfers are clearly
This is the key to the election.
the key
right?
to the election and the main issues at the moment, because an increase of one candidate also means something
For the others.
for the others, and the transfers at the runoff. So, for the moment, what is clear is that 100%, approximately 100% of the ones who vote for Jean-Luc Mélenchon at the first round will vote for François Hollande, because both constituencies, both electorates are voter bases are
And Jean-Luc Mélenchon has said so.
similar. Yeah. But I don't even think that it is important what he says. The reality is they are the same people. I would say it's only a matter of nuances and a state of mind. Regarding the centrist electorate, here the situation is clearly the same, I would say, as in 2007, but with a much reduced voter base. So 50% on the left, 50% on the right. Regarding the National Front, Marine Le Pen's voters, they behave exactly as her father's voters did in 1995, for example. That is, they go, or 2007, but probably more like in 1995, that is to say, a fifth, 20%, who probably initially were on the left, go back to the left, I would say, and the overwhelming majority, 80%, vote for Nicolas Sarkozy, as in fact they already did, a big part of them in 2007. So Nicolas Sarkozy clearly relies on this electorate for the runoff, and in his mind it is not enough. He must also encroach on the center, and François Hollande obviously will manage during the period between both rounds to get as much as he can from the voters that would have voted for François Bayrou at the first round, obviously.
Jérôme Guedj, answer to both. I mean, the Mélenchon factor, and how do you do this? How do you deal with Jean-Luc Mélenchon and try to attract some Bayrou voters in round two?
Poor right party in France that has to wait for Jean-Luc Mélenchon. You know, the right party, the UMP, has never been so nice with Jean-Luc Mélenchon, trying to transform him as something completely dangerous for the country. You know, I prefer having to deal with Jean-Luc Mélenchon and not with him, with his voters, than to deal with to do the splits like Nicolas Sarkozy had to do with Marine Le Pen. I do prefer, you know, Jean-Luc Mélenchon, I know him quite well. I have worked for 20 years with him. And I know that he has to expresses a kind of insurrection, great expectations. But at the end of the story, and you know, in the Fifth Republic, that is the rule. On the first round, you choose. On the second round, you eliminate. And I'm quite convinced that the voters of Jean-Luc Mélenchon, they will eliminate Nicolas Sarkozy, even if they don't agree completely with François Hollande programs. But the connection between François Hollande program and the expectations of Jean-Luc Mélenchon voters are here, are present. It doesn't mean that we are going to make a deal, a political deal, a programmatic deal during the election. That's not the spirit of the presidential election. You don't have to make a political platform between the first and the second round. You have to respond the expectations and the wishes expressed by the voters.
I don't think it's the same situation left and right. May I say very simply that it asks us a lot of questions, the fact that Mr. Mélenchon is progressing so much. People are looking for, really new hopes, new way to do politics, and the enthusiasm we see in his meeting. This is a question for, I think, all of us. Secondly, you are going, if you win, to manage France with Mr. Mélenchon. If he has 15% or a large share of votes, he will be important in French politics after the election.
I don't know.
And you have a common government, as you have already organized things with the Green people voting for.
You may know that he has already said that he didn't want to be part of the government. He has already said that he won't be part of the government.
But his friends, his friends, of course. The situation on the right hand is very different. Nicolas Sarkozy has, of course, excluded to discuss anyway with Mrs. Le Pen.
She too.
The question, because she knows he will refuse it. The question is more the position of Nicolas Sarkozy in terms regarding the centrist. Mm-hmm. I am centrist, having made the choice of Sarkozy, but there are centrists.
Are you uncomfortable sometimes with what you hear on your own side?
No, I think Mr. Sarkozy has his lines. We defend sometimes on texts on different specific points, centrist positions, but I feel comfortable. This is why I support him, like a large share of the centrists, but some of them have followed François Bayrou. I am sure a large part of François Bayrou voters can join Nicolas Sarkozy if the debate and the proposal he makes between the two turns can make them feel comfortable. And of course, the voters of Mr. Bayrou are going to be an important issue. And one of the questions is François Bayrou going to give an indication of vote or not after the second?
He would. I'm sorry, we have to
but
stop
it's not sure.
It's not sure. Lots of questions around the centrist voters. Thank you to all of you. We just have to wait a little more to know the results. And if the predictions we heard today will turn out to be true. Thank you for watching this edition of Politics here on France 24.